The waves crashed against the research platform in rhythmic succession, rocking it gently like a cradle. I removed my headphones and rubbed my tired eyes. 3 hours of listening to underwater recordings had yielded nothing unusual, until now. I played the segment again, leaning closer to my monitor, as if proximity might reveal something the audio analysis software had missed. There. A pattern unlike anything in my extensive database of marine sounds. Not a whale, not a dolphin, not the creaking of ice, or the grinding of tectonic plates. Something else. You're still at it. Dr. Harris appeared in the doorway of the lab, coffee mug in hand. His face showed the concern of a colleague who had watched me grow increasingly obsessive over the past week. "Listen to this," I said, not looking up. I played the sequence again and watched Harris's expression. Nothing. No recognition, no intrigue. "I don't hear anything unusual," he admitted after a moment. "It's there, between the 47 and 49-second mark." Harris sighed. "Eliza, you've been working 16-hour days. The equipment on the Northwest Array has been glitchy since that storm last month." "This isn't a glitch." My voice was firm. "I've isolated it from 3 different hydrophones." Harris set his mug down and leaned against my desk. "Look, we're all concerned. You haven't been the same since the divorce. Taking this position at the edge of nowhere was supposed to give you space to heal, not this." I stiffened. "This has nothing to do with Michael." "Then get some sleep. That's an order from your station chief." His tone softened. "Whatever you're hearing will still be there tomorrow." After he left, I added the new recording to my growing collection, and reluctantly headed to my quarters. But sleep, when it finally came, brought no rest. I was underwater, drifting downward. No scuba gear, no pressure, no fear. Just the embrace of cold darkness as I descended. And then the sounds, the same patterns I'd been tracking for days, surrounded me, vibrating through my body rather than my ears. "We remember you." I jolted awake, gasping. My sheets were soaked with sweat, and the taste of salt filled my mouth. The dream had been so vivid I could still feel the pressure of deep water against my skin. I reached for my phone and checked the time. 3:17 a.m. Sleep was impossible now. Instead, I activated my room's audio recorder. Originally intended for dictating research notes, and played back the night's recording. My blood turned cold as I heard my own voice speaking during my sleep, but the words weren't English, nor any language I recognized. The cadence, however, matched perfectly with the underwater sounds I'd been studying. 2 weeks later, my quarters had transformed into a chaotic nest of data printouts, spectrograms, and linguistic reference materials. My station colleagues now actively avoided me, whispering about stress-induced breakdowns and the harsh realities of isolation research. Only Dr. Chen, the station's medical officer, still made daily visits. Today, her concern was palpable. "Your blood work shows significant abnormalities," Chen said, tablet in hand. "Elevated sodium levels, unusual protein markers, and the lesions on your neck." "They're not lesions," I interrupted, my hand instinctively covering the tender spots along my neck just below my ears. "They're sensitive areas, like pressure points." Chen's expression remained professional, but troubled. "They weren't there during your intake examination 2 months ago. People develop skin conditions under stress. You just said I'm stressed." "I'm recommending medical evacuation. The next supply helicopter can..." "No." My vehemence surprised even myself. "I mean, that's not necessary. I'm close to identifying the source. I just need more time." "More time for what, exactly?" Chen's gaze swept over the chaos of the room. "This doesn't look like marine biology research anymore, Eliza." That night, I added another lock to my door. I couldn't risk being forcibly evacuated, not when I was so close, not when the dreams had become so clear. The night dive wasn't sanctioned. After the station went quiet, and the night shift skeleton crew was occupied with routine monitoring, I slipped out to the platform's dive deck. The moon hung full and bright, casting silver ripples across the black water. Standard protocol required a dive partner, proper logging, and communication equipment. I took only my wetsuit, a small underwater light, and an experimental hydrophone I'd modified to emit the sounds from my recordings. The water embraced me like an old friend. 50 feet down, I activated the hydrophone and waited. The sound patterns pulsed into the darkness, and I felt a strange comfort in being surrounded by them. I didn't have to wait long. A shimmering in the distance caught my eye. Movement where no reef existed, no known migration route for large marine life. As I swam closer, my light revealed nothing but open water. Yet the sensation of presence intensified. Something brushed against my leg. Not the solid form of a fish or mammal, but something with enough substance to leave the ghost of pressure against my skin. I turned, heart pounding, but saw only darkness. "We remember you, Eliza Marsh." The voice didn't come through my ears. It resonated inside my skull, as if my brain itself were vibrating with sound. I gasped involuntarily, sucking water into my mouth. But instead of choking, I felt the water pass over something in my throat that filtered it naturally. Panic seized me. I kicked toward the surface, toward air and light, and the solid reality of the research platform. As I broke through the waves, coughing and sputtering, my hands flew to my neck, where the sensitive areas now burned like acid against my skin. "What do you mean I was sleepwalking?" I demanded the next morning. Harris looked exhausted. "Security footage shows you walking onto the dive deck at 2:30 a.m. Chen had to physically restrain you from jumping into the ocean without any gear." "That's impossible. I did dive last night, but I was fully aware and equipped." Harris shook his head. "Your wetsuit was dry, Eliza, but your clothes and hair were soaked with salt water when Chen found you." My mind raced. I remembered the dive vividly. The modified hydrophone, the presence in the water, the voice. I remembered returning to my quarters afterward, reviewing my findings. There couldn't be gaps in my memory, could there? "I want to show you something," Harris said, pulling out a tablet. "This is from your sleep recordings 3 nights ago." On screen, I watched myself sit upright in bed, eyes open but vacant. My mouth moved, forming words in that same unknown language I'd heard on my recordings. But then the camera captured something else, my neck, where dark slits momentarily opened and closed with each breath. "This isn't possible," I whispered. "We've contacted your family," Harris continued gently. "Your mother is flying in with the medical evacuation team tomorrow." My mother. The mention sent an unexpected chill through me. Why her? We've barely spoken in years. She mentioned something about a family history of episodes. She said she should have warned you about taking a job near the ocean. That night, I locked myself in my bathroom and examined the tender areas on my neck in the mirror. They weren't lesions or irritation. The skin was different there, thinner and faintly iridescent in the bright light. When I pressed gently, I felt structures beneath that shouldn't exist in human anatomy. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Don't let them take you from the water. Grandmother made that mistake. So did I. Don't repeat our suffering." The area code was from my mother's coastal hometown, a place I had visited only once as a child. A place where my grandmother had lived in a house facing the sea. Windows always open to the sound of waves, despite the cold. A place where local legends spoke of people who sometimes returned to the ocean. I had always dismissed those stories as the folklore of an isolated fishing community. Now I wasn't so certain. I ran a bath and submerged myself, allowing the lukewarm water to cover my face. The burning sensation in my neck subsided immediately. Beneath the water, I exhaled experimentally and felt those structures open, extracting oxygen from the water with quiet efficiency. I wasn't discovering a new species. I was becoming one. The storm hit with unexpected ferocity just after midnight. Winds howled around the research platform, and waves crashed against its supports with thunderous force. The evacuation helicopter scheduled for morning arrival would never be able to land in such conditions. I stood on the observation deck, letting the rain soak me completely. Each drop felt like a blessing on my increasingly sensitive skin. Lightning forked across the sky, momentarily illuminating the churning sea below. And the shapes moving within it, they weren't human, not entirely. Humanoid forms undulated beneath the surface, their bodies reflecting the lightning in silver flashes. Dozens of them, circling the platform, waiting. "Come home, daughter of daughters. Return to us." The voice, now recognizable as many voices speaking in unison, filled my mind with impossible clarity, despite the storm's rage. Something ancient stirred in my blood, memories that weren't mine yet somehow belonged to me. I remembered swimming through midnight depths, hunting in coordinated patterns with others of my kind. I remembered breathing water as easily as air, communicating through sound patterns that traveled miles through ocean currents. I remembered the joy of belonging to something vast and timeless. "Eliza, get inside," Harris was shouting from the doorway, one arm raised against the driving rain. Behind him stood Chen and two security officers. I turned toward them, suddenly seeing them through alien eyes. Their fragility, their limitation to one element, their brief lifespans. They thought they were saving me, but they were really trapping me. "I know what I am now," I called back, my voice carrying unnaturally over the storm. Harris took a cautious step forward. "Whatever you're experiencing, we can help you. Your mother will be here as soon as the storm passes." "My mother," I laughed, the sound oddly melodic. "She tried to deny it too, cut herself off from the water, married a man from inland, pretended we were just like everyone else." Another step. Harris was only 15 feet away now. "Eliza, you're having some kind of psychological episode. Please come inside where it's safe." "I'm not Eliza anymore. Not entirely." I moved toward the railing. Below, the shapes grew more agitated, their circling tighter, and I've never been safer than I am right now. Lightning crashed nearby, momentarily blinding everyone on the deck. In that instant of confusion, I made my decision. Not to jump, that would appear too much like suicide, and they might search for my body. Instead, I allowed myself to be rescued, offering no resistance as Harris and the security officers led me inside. 3 weeks later, I sat in my mother's coastal home, watching the tide roll in through the large bay windows. I'd been diagnosed with a rare genetic condition that caused hallucinations and physical symptoms under certain environmental stressors. The medical literature described it as a hereditary syndrome particularly triggered by prolonged exposure to deep-sea environments. My mother knew better, but said nothing. I had seen her watching anxiously whenever my gaze lingered too long on the ocean. Had seen her check the locks on the doors at night. Had noticed the prescription pills she crushed into my food when she thought I wasn't looking. The pills dulled the call, but couldn't silence it entirely. At night I would press my ear to the floor and hear the voices singing to me through the foundation of the house, through the earth, through the groundwater that connected to the sea. During my daily monitored walks along the beach, I collected small items. A piece of fishing line here, a sharp shell there. In my room, I'd fashioned them into a crude but effective tool that could pick the simple lock my mother had installed on the outside of my bedroom door. Tonight was the new moon, the darkest night of the month. The tide would reach its highest point at 2:17 a.m. They would be waiting for me just beyond the breakers. I smiled at my mother across the dinner table, accepting the food I now knew contained sedatives. I pretended to grow drowsy at the appropriate time, and didn't resist being led to my bedroom. "It's for your own good," my mother whispered, tears in her eyes as she locked the door. "You don't understand what happens to people like us if we go back. We don't get to return." But I understood perfectly. That was precisely the point. After my mother's footsteps faded, I retrieved my homemade lockpick from its hiding place beneath a loose floorboard. The lock yielded easily, The house remained silent as I crept through it, past my sleeping mother, out the back door that led directly to the beach path. The night air carried the scent of salt and possibility. I shed my clothes at the waterline, exposing skin that had grown increasingly iridescent despite the medications. The tender areas on my neck throbbed in anticipation. As I waded into the midnight water, I felt no fear, only homecoming. The structures on my neck opened fully for the first time, and the sensation of breathing water was like shedding a lifetime of suffocation. Silver forms rose to meet me, their almost human faces alight with welcome. Hands that were not quite hands reached for mine, skin touching skin in recognition. Somewhere on shore, a motion detector light flashed on. My mother would soon discover my absence, but it was already too late. I had found my true element, and while part of me would always remember being human, the ocean depths were calling me home. Sweet dreams.